another common question that comes up for the parents and caregivers is that kind of tension of how do I know if I'm pushing too much and how do I know if I'm not pushing enough? Because what we know is that avoidance for anxiety, it feels nice in the moment, and it's quite nice for parents too, you know, if we say, oh, it's okay, like it's okay not to go to school today, and you can just see that anxiety melt away and it feels nice for you, and so we can get in a bit of a cycle of avoiding. So how do we hold that line of, there are times where we might need to have a day off school because actually there is a whole heap, and how do we know then if that's going to be helpful or unhelpful? Because I think sometimes even if we send the message that you don't have to do that thing that's caused a whole lot of anxiety, if we just straight out say that's okay, we don't have to do it, that can also sometimes send a message that there was something to fear.
True. Yes.
Yeah.
It can almost reinforce that this is real.
Yes.
Yeah. Real fear, and or the intensity of it.
Yeah.
Is acceptable, really. Yeah.
And again, for adolescents, it's harder for parents because they are more independent and we are more removed from their life. And I think actually thinking of ourselves as the coach can be a helpful way of thinking, because we can't play the game for them. We can't be on the field next to them all the time, but actually if we can coach them and give them enough skills for them to trust that we're there for them when they need, I think that can be really helpful to take away.
Cheerlead and support, and
it's a bit more realistic on what we can actually do as parents.
And I'm just thinking from a parent point of view, just noticing what we're doing as well, that there's this natural inclination, as we see it, when our young people are distressed, to want to rescue them and do it for them. But notice when we're doing, maybe overdoing the rescuing, we want to get enough of.
Yes.
Or when we're maybe getting caught up, giving in to patterns as well, because it's not unusual when things are scary for young people to really fight back and and put pressure on us to change things or change what we do, and that doesn't help change the pattern either. Or that we just get so frustrated and angry and push too hard then. So it's kind of really noticing our responses too, and those responses are normal responses, but I'm thinking, is this helpful or not? Maybe I need to change something, and being able to flex that's really important.
Yeah. And one of the tools that I quite like, that I do use a lot with children and adolescents as well, is the idea of a thermometer. So with the how hard to push and how, am I pushing too much or not enough, I really like this because we're looking at the different colours and we've got a thermometer, so kind of really low to no anxiety to all the way up to the top, which is that really extreme panic place. So when we think about how the running in and rescuing, often that means that the teenager is going to be comfortable and their environment is manageable. And if we're just doing this, what actually tends to happen is their world tends to shrink. So something one week might have been okay, but actually tends to get smaller and smaller the more we just do things that are in the green and feeling comfortable and manageable. And on the other end of that, actually, if we have, if we're pushing young people constantly into the red, so that really high end panic, we talk about it's like it's uncomfortable and it's also unmanageable, then that's also not helpful. When I think about the red as a parent, it can be helpful to think about what's your red.
Yeah.
Because while your teen's talking about going into the dairy and buying some milk, and they're saying, no, I can't do that, like, that is just way too much. It's hard to understand when we've never felt like, potentially never felt like that. So I do think about, for me, that would be bungee jumping, skydiving, and even just thinking about it, I can feel my body respond, and how actually that would just be quite unfair if someone sat behind me and forced me to do that.
To do it,
then it's not helpful.
Yeah.
So we think about, actually, we're trying to aim for this orange area. So this is what we're going to feel uncomfortable. The teenager's going to be uncomfortable. They're not in their kind of safety zone, but they're not also at that real panic level. And how do we navigate and negotiate what that looks like for the young person? And sometimes it can be in the collaborative discussion, and sometimes it's just noticing. You'll get to notice them. You'll notice when they stop talking and they become really red, and maybe their breathing changes. Then we notice we've gone a bit too much.
Yeah. So constant feedback.
Yeah. Because even if together you think, okay, well, we're not going to send you into the dairy on your own to get it, that's red.
Yeah.
You might negotiate then. Can I come with you?
Yeah. What's possible?
Yeah.
Can we do? Breaking it down into what is manageable.
Absolutely.
Is really helpful, isn't it?
And I think having that trust that, if you're noticing that it's in the red, that trust to kind of pull back for a little bit, because it doesn't mean that you don't have to do it. It just means in this moment, you just need to take a little bit of a break, a bit of a breather, to just regulate, to kind of keep moving forward.
That's important.
And when I'm working with young people, I notice when there's that trust, often they actually will go further than I even think.
Yes.
Because they have the trust that if it starts getting to red, we can push pause.
Yeah. So that almost frees them up to actually take a step further than they would.
Yes.
Than we would have anticipated.
Yeah,
often.
absolutely.
Yes.
So that idea of the kind of traffic light colours can just be helpful, and you can talk about it with your team, and you can think about together what is orange, because it's not letting them sit in the green, and it's not insisting that they just do everything that's red. It's what's manageable, and how can we do it together and problem solve. And I think, thinking about ourselves, that can be different on different days.
That's right. So it's in moments at different times. What's in red.
Yes.
It can vary. Or what's in orange.
Because for the last week I've been able to go into the dairy and grab something on the way home, but actually today, that is just so overwhelming, and it's like that cumulative effect you talked about. That if they've had a really rough day and had a whole heap going on, it looks different on a different day.
Yeah. Our capacity can change.
Yeah.
Our resilience changes.
Yeah. So I do quite like thinking about like an orange zone, something we still expect children to go to school, or teens to go to school, keep those routines, but at that level that's uncomfortable but manageable. And if it's red, we still hold those expectations as parents and the things that are really important for them, and how can we problem solve to bring that down to an orange, or how can we support them to bring that down. And
keeping, taking one step at a time, and holding on to the bigger picture as well.
Absolutely. The goal's up here, but actually it's those little steps.
We might go up and down some steps on the way, but we're tracking in the right direction. And keeping on through all that, those genuine care and curious reflections.
Absolutely, and that validation in that moment. Just noticing. Understanding.
Come back to that when it feels too much. That's when the validating.
Absolutely.
Really
when you're
important.
sitting in the car outside of the dairy and the teen's saying, I can't do it, I know this is really hard, I can see I can see how big this is for you, and how can I help? How can we get you through this?
Yeah, and knowing and giving them the message that it does pass.
Yes.
Yeah, those intense moments of
Yeah.
distress do pass.
Yeah.